Failure is not falling down. Failure is falling down and not getting up. Welcome to another episode. Ansuma, Daswa, Mimamachi, Ekaro, Kwalafia. Good morning, bonjour, subah khair. We're still on the paper called Gossip. In the last episode, we dealt with a story called Wife for Sale. We got to the end of the paper, but it was to be continued. It was to be continued on the next issue, which I've looked through my papers and I haven't found. It looked like we had only 3 of such paper, Gossip, 3 of them. And so we have to make do with that. We have to start a fresh story, and that will be a short story entitled Pastor Anointed My Underparts. And very good. Unfortunately, it's also a continuation of a story of the previous paper, which I don't have. Like I said, I've got only 3 of them. So the previous paper I didn't have. I don't know why this paper, they chose to spread one story across many papers, many pages and many paper editions. I don't know. So we will make do with what we are going to continue from the continuation. Many years after my marriage with my husband, we could not bring forth children. My closest friend, Grace, introduced me to her pastor, who promised to get me a baby through prayers. What is it? Read what happened afterwards. Oh, it's not read, it's rad, R-A-D. I don't think there's a word like that. Okay, let me correct it. Read what happened afterwards. When he was through with lubricating my vagina, pardon me, I'm reading from a source. In religious terms, it's not good, though we do it. So, when he was through with lubricating my vagina with the anointing oil, he began to suck my breast. Pastor, he began to suck my breast. As he did so, his finger went into my vagina as he did so, his finger went into my vagina again, and he began to finger me deep, caressing my cervix. For the first time, I began to have some sensation that developed quickly into great excitement. He fingered me so expertly. That I was almost getting in an orgasm. I was almost getting an orgasm. I thought to myself as he worked on me that if it was God that actually sent him to do this to me, then he was carrying out God's instructions very well. Oh my God. Was carrying out God's instructions very well. Then, paragraph. But just when I was about to have my orgasm, he stopped and got up. He began to remove the clothes he began to remove his clothes one after the other, while I remained impatiently on the bed watching him. He's a very tall man, so I expected his penis to be equally long. But when he removed his pants, I found that it was quite longer than I expected. Okay. Mhm. The length of it frightened me a bit, but I did not protest. I did not protest. He came for me and spread my legs wide apart and began to force his penis inside my vagina. Full stop. Because of the anointing oil that he has used to anoint my vagina, he gained he gained an easy entrance into me quickly. My husband has a modest penis. My husband has a modest penis, but Pastor's long dick went straight down to where no penis had ever reached in my vagina. It was a little bit painful initially, but as he began to deliver the thrust, the pains reduced and I began to enjoy it. After fucking me for another 5 minutes, I was about to reach climax again when he stopped. It was a painful suspense, and I wondered whether he was doing it deliberately. This time, he asked me to get up and position myself on my elbows and knees. I wondered what he was up to, but he did not allow me much time to guess. He positioned himself behind me and began to penetrate me from behind. My God, my God, who taught Pastor all this? My God, who taught Pastor all this? Is a question she's asking. Was that was that what God sent him to do? What was that what God sent him to do to me? Or was he or was he overdoing what he was told? Or what, was he overdoing what he was told? One would have expected that being a pastor, he should be content with the missionary style, and not the dog style. But while I was having doubts on my mind, while I was having doubts in my mind, Pastor was busy slamming in and out of me. He held my waist and hips tightly and gave me the hardest and fastest thrust I had ever received in my life. Shortly after, I began to get great sensation as I approached the peak of sexual excitement. I prayed that this time he should not step, he should not stop and disturb the orgasm. Full stop. Instead of stopping, he continued he continued to fuck me until both of us reached orgasm at the same time. After that, he pulled out his long penis and wiped it clean with tissue paper. He kissed me and laid down beside me to congratulate me. I can assure you that from now, you have nothing to be afraid of. Any moment from now, you are going to have your own baby. I did not say much to him, but I decided to leave his house quickly. When I was going, he told me that as soon as I missed my period, I should tell him. I should tell him first before my husband. I didn't say anything. I left him and went home. It was when I got home that evening that it occurred to me that I have been used. Hmm. It was as if some scales covering my eyes had suddenly fallen off. Full stop. Things suddenly became clearer to me. This Randy pastor has me, has deceived me into committing adultery in the name of God. Just because I was desperate for a child, his satanic, this satanic pastor had taken advantage of me. So this was what they do. So this was what they do in their born again churches. Is the question. It did not go back to the church. No, sorry, I did not go back to the church. Grace, Grace, my friend, tried everything she could to get me back to the church, but I refused. I could not tell her. I could not tell her why, but I just told her I was fed up with the church. As for my husband, I could not tell him what happened. I only prayed to God for forgiveness and returned to my Catholic church. Full stop. But barely 3 weeks after I missed my period, it was a big shock to me. I could not believe it until the pregnancy test confirmed it. Immediately I was thrown into a big dilemma. I have no doubt in my mind that the baby in my womb belonged to the pastor. But should I abort the baby or give birth to it and pretend if it belonged to my husband? No, bad English. And pretend it belonged to my husband. I corrected it. It's a question, sorry. But should I abort the baby or give birth to it and pretend it belonged to my husband? Should I do that? It's a question mark. I've been looking for a child all these years. Now that I am going to have one, should I abort it? But should I give another man's child to my husband? That is the dilemma I find my, that is the dilemma I find myself in. Time will tell. To be continued again. You see how this stories. I think that one I should have. Okay, I think that one I should have. Oh my God. Pastor anointed my underpart. Pardon me, viewers. Yes, it's here. To be continued. So the continuation is here. And continued from last issue. Story so far. Out of the desperation for a baby, out of the desperation for a baby, I followed my friend. I followed my friend's advice to see a pastor who tricked me and slept with me. I am now pregnant. I know it is the pastor that has made me pregnant. What do I tell my husband? Must I abort the baby? Now read on. So, luckily, it seems to be a story, just not, it seems to be fiction, sorry. Okay, now read on. I am in a fix. I have tried so many years to get a baby, all to no avail. All to no avail. My in laws are secretly calling me Sadwe. My in laws are secretly calling me Sadwe. In other words, into brackets, a barren woman. A barren woman, Sadwe. And, uh, and are convincing my husband to try another woman to see if she'll give him the needed baby. Paragraph. My sisters, my sisters-in-law have started introducing their beautiful friends to my husband with the hope that he will sleep with one of them. With the hope that he will sleep with one of them. I know if that happens, I will be doomed for good. Uh, I am now pregnant. The pastor tricked me into sleeping with me, and the baby and the baby is roaming in my womb. What should I do? Should I tell my husband I am pregnant? Should I abort the baby in my womb and wait for God's own time? I think this is a repetition. She asked it before. Paragraph. My husband has stood behind me all the time. My husband has stood behind me all this time. But won't he succumb to the intense pressure? Won't he succumb to the intense pressures from his family if I don't tell him I am pregnant? Hmm. But how can I give the pastor's baby to my husband? That's the dilemma of the woman. The pastor's but how can I give the pastor's baby to my husband? It is now clear that I'm not Sadwe barren, into brackets, barren woman, as my in-laws perceive me to be. Could the problem come from my husband? What do I do? I love my husband and I would not want to disgrace him. I decided to give my husband the test from the gynecologist proving that I was 1.5 months pregnant. Full stop. I will abort the baby. I will not give it to my husband to save our marriage. I will not give it to my husband to save our marriage. These were these were the thoughts that went through my mind. Paragraph. So I never told my husband that I was pregnant. However, my conscience was nagging me, but I did my best to keep cool so that I did not expose my secret pregnancy to my husband. Paragraph. My mother and sisters-in-laws, my mother and sisters-in-laws attitude increased from scorn to disrespect for me. They did not see the reason why my husband was wasting his time and money on a sideware like me. Then came another period of agony. Then came another period of agony for me. After the After the honey and solid sex session with the pastor, my husband looked like a novice whenever he had sex with me. Oh my God. Hmm. I just lay there until bored. I just laid down there bored, only to feign orgasm for him to satisfy myself. I just lay there bored, only to feign organism for him to satisfy myself. Or is it himself? For him to satisfy himself. Okay. When I complained, he said he was doing lots of overtime at the office to make more money so that we could pay the huge gynecology bills he had he had to foot for a doctor to treat me for me to have a baby. Oh, I'm reading so slowly. Pardon me. Okay. Paragraph. I trusted my husband, and so I did not make a fuss. I had no alternative than to go back to the pastor who made me pregnant. Welcome, my dear. He greeted me secretly. Welcome, my dear. He greeted me sweetly and planted a kiss on my hips. I could not resist his approaches. I parted my lips for a long and passionate kiss. What brings you here, my dear? He asked me as, as he directed me to a sofa and served me with some soft drinks. I finished through, I fetched, okay, I fished through my handbag and threw my pregnancy test report into his laps. Praise Lord, I told you God will make you pregnant. Hey, pastors. He talked excitedly, but I interrupted him. Pastor, you don't seem to realize the dilemma that I find myself in. I queried him. I queried him. What dilemma? He inquired. It is not my husband that it is not my husband that made me pregnant. It is you that made me pregnant. And now, and how can I give your baby to the husband? I asked. How can I give the baby to my husband? I asked. Uh, he sat down for a moment. He sat down for a moment in a pensive mood and asked me, so what are you going to do? I will abort the baby. Of course, I replied. After all these years and the toil you have gone through, After all these years and the toil you have gone through, if God has given you a baby, why do you want to abort it? He asked me, apparently confused. Pastor, it is not God that gave me the baby. It is you that gave me the baby. And since I am married and cannot give I cannot give since I'm married and cannot give the baby to my husband, I have to abort it, I replied. Well, as you wish, he replied, and started caressing my inner thighs and breasts. I had kissed, I had missed his good fuck, and so the mere touch of his hands on my breast set my hormones alive. Abba. Okay. Within minutes, my pants were within minutes my pants were wet. I gently pushed Within minutes my pants were wet. He gently pushed me onto the sofa, pulled off my pants, and raised my skirt and placed himself between my thighs. To be continued. Sadly, we cannot continue it because the next paper is absent. I couldn't buy it. So I think we should stop here and let's see. Let's see. It means I now have to change the paper again, mm, and go to the previous issue, which is basic. Pastor anointing my underpart. So we finished on that page. We have wife for sale, which we couldn't continue. And now Pastor anointed my underpart, which we have continued. Then we go to, is the menstruating woman unclean? Can we do that? Let's quickly do that. So, there it is. No, we haven't. Is the menstruating woman unclean? It's a question. Mhm. Uh, the erroneous notion and impression that a menstruating woman is dirty and dangerous still prevails in modern society. Uh, this notion dates back to prehistoric times. Full stop. J.G. Fraser states in the Golden Bough, states in the Golden Bough, Bough is spelled Bogh. Sadly, I don't know the correct pronunciation, whether it's Bough or Buff. I think it's Bough. Pardon me, forgive me. I don't know. It's not everything that I know. States in the Golden Bough, or Bough. According to the Talmud, if a woman at the beginning of the period passes between two men, she thereby kills one of them. Talmud is one of the Asian books, religious books. In Arabic, Talmud is like student. Talmud is like one of the olden books. According to the Talmud, if a woman at the beginning of her period passes between two men, she thereby kills one of them. Of course, in the Quran, we should stay away from menstruating women. We shouldn't approach them. It is pollutant and hurt. It is a hurt and pollutant. Pollutant as a, I've forgotten the word. So, but anyway, it's pollutant and it's a hurt and pollutant. That's in the Quran. Thereby kills one of them. Peasants of the Lebanon, peasants of the Lebanon think that the shadow of, into brackets, the shadow of God menstruates. Let me remove the brackets first. Peasants of the Lebanon think that menstruous women cause flowers to wither and trees to perish. Full stop. If even It even arrests the movements of serpents. So let me now insert the brackets and see. Peasants of Lebanon think that, into brackets, the shadow of menstruous women. So not is the shadow. It even arrests the movement of serpents. The Bible declares that anyone lying with a woman within 7 days of the onset of her period, even if it lasts only 3, shall be unclean. Shall be unclean 7 days, and every bed whereon he lieth shall be unclean. Yes, it's pollutant and hurts. Something that is pollutant pollutes the environment. So It's more. It's so I agree with this. Uh, shall be unclean. Paragraph. This is this is nonsense to medical science. Hmm? So who are medical scientists compared to God? Nothing. Okay. This is nonsense to medical science. Medically, the menstrual flow is in no sense dirty or harmful. But sorry, some of the letters are not very clear. Pardon me. But it has been used as a convenient excuse by women wishing to avoid intercourse. As a pathetic example, we have had many reports about mothers who force their daughters to wear menstrual pads when going on dates just to deceive the partners that they are in their period, and that way their partners may not want to engage in sex with them. This attitude is residual of the double standard, and as society approaches as a same-sex ethnic a same-sex ethic, sorry, no, it's not ethnic. And let me start again. This attitude is a residual of the double standard, and as society approaches a same-sex ethic, women should be able to simply say no if they wish to avoid intercourse, and men should be secured enough to accept an honest, well-intentioned injection without considering themselves humiliated. Uh, Paragraph. Actually, many women feel below par during the height of their menstrual flow, and they are frequently bothered by cramps. This should be sufficient. This should be sufficient reason to abstain from sex, but that is not a, but that is not an irrational taboo. But that's not an irrational taboo. And if the women feel and if the women feel up to making sex, it is healthy and clean to do so. A small percentage of women usually experience heightened desires towards the end of their period to have sex. A small percentage of women actually experience heightened desire towards the end of their period to have sex. There is no reason for them or their partners to be deprived of the pleasure of sexual intercourse during their menstrual periods, and it is very healthy and no risk. And I think that's the end of the story. So viewers, we've now finished with page 6 of of the issue of volume 2, page 6 of volume 2. When we come back, we are going to page 7, and it is the unwilling prostitute. Should a second marriage be broken? That we've done that already. Then the problem of diabetes and the diets to use. I think that's when these two topics will be what we'll read in our next episode. That's the unwilling prostitute, and then the problem of diabetes and diets to use. Sorry for bad reading. Sometimes it happens. My knees are down for my viewers. Thank you very much. Ila lika, bye bye.